This story, which happened in 2012, shocked the whole of Australia. Young girl Jill Meagher disappeared from the well-lit streets of Melbourne while walking home late at night. Within a few days, tens of thousands of people took to the streets after learning the shocking truth. In this video, we will tell you what happened to Jill Meagher and how it affected the entire Australian society. Jill Meagher was born on October 30, 1982 in the small Irish port city of Drogheda. She spent her entire childhood with her parents in the village of Turman, which was located not far from the city. When the girl was 9 years old, her father, George Mackian, got a job in the Australian city of Perth. There, the girl graduated from school in 1996 with her family and returned to Ireland. Returning home, Jill attended Drogheda Grammar School and St. Oliver's Community College, and was then able to obtain a Bachelor of Arts degree from University College Dublin. Having successfully graduated from university, Meagher got a job at a large television and radio company. At the same time, she met Tom Meagher, whom she married in 2008. A year later, she and her husband decided to come to the Australian city of Melbourne. There, the woman got a job on the radio as an administrator. She also appeared on air occasionally. At this time, the girl's parents moved to Petro again. Jill was on excellent terms with his family, and in September 2019 he went to visit them to visit his sick father. Jill planned to continue working at her favorite job, and after a couple of years, she and her husband dreamed of having a child. On the evening of September 21, 2019, Jill and her colleagues went to a local bar, Brunswick Green, which was located on Sydney Route. After that, the group went outside for a walk, and 15 minutes later they decided to go to another bar on the same street. Jill left the bar around 1:30 am and headed home, where her husband Tom was waiting for her. On the way, she called her brother Michael to discuss the health of her father, who was ill. Jill expressed her concerns, and her brother decided to gather with the whole family during the coming holidays. At 2 o'clock in the morning, Tom woke up and realized that Jill was still not at home. He became worried and started calling her on her mobile phone. However, the wife did not answer the phone, and by 4 o'clock in the morning, the husband decided to contact the police. The police drove around the entire area, questioning random passers-by, but to no avail. No one saw Jill. Her colleagues with whom she was relaxing that evening told police that the girl was last seen leaving a bar on Sydney Route. There, they said goodbye to her, believing that in 30 minutes she would be home. The police combed the city all morning, but they could not find any leads. In the morning, Jill's colleagues joined in the search on social networks. They wrote about the girl's disappearance on Twitter and created a search group called Help Us Find Jill Meagher. Television and radio immediately responded to this sad news. Flyers with information about the missing woman have also been posted around Melbourne. All this attracted wide public attention. From the first day, thousands of people followed Jill's fate. Jill's husband gave an emotional speech to reporters, which drew even more attention to the case. The same day, the police began studying videos taken by street surveillance cameras. They watched hundreds of minutes of footage from different parts of the city, bars and shops, intersections and gas stations. At first, they had only one recording on their hands, which featured Jill. A camera near the bar filmed her saying goodbye to her friends and heading towards home. Meanwhile, on September 24, searches on the streets bore fruit. Her bag was found in one of the alleys not far from Jill's house. This discovery helped the police focus their attention on certain areas, which also yielded results. On September 25, the police managed to spot Jill in one of the recordings. She was caught on camera outside a bridal shop at 1:42 am, about 12 minutes after leaving the bar. The recording showed her talking to a suspicious man in a blue hoodie in the middle of the street. The same man had fallen asleep in the area of the store 4 minutes earlier. One recording showed him running in the same direction Jill had gone. Police also tracked her phone's geolocation data and determined it was traveling along one of Melbourne's main highways that night. This meant only one thing: the phone was in the car. Law enforcement agencies began studying footage from cameras on that highway. Thanks to the phone's geolocation data, they didn't have to sift through the thousands of cars driving there that night. Having the time and movement pattern of the smartphone in hand, they very soon established that its movement coincided with the route of one of the cars. Having punched the license plate of this car, the police were horrified. It was registered in the name of a criminal convicted of violence against women. Already on September 27, the police announced the arrest of this man, and he turned out to be 41-year-old Indreen Arnis Bailey. At the same time, they brought forward a very disappointing accusation against him. According to investigators, he assaulted and killed Jill Meagher. This statement shocked the public and journalists, who until the last hoped for the best. Despite the fact that the police kept the details secret, no one hoped that Jill would be found alive. At a closed briefing for reporters, police only said they were confident the case had been solved. Only after some time will all the details be revealed to the public. As soon as the name of the suspect was announced to journalists, his disturbing biography began to be studied under a microscope. Indreen Arnis Bailey worked as a pastry chef and had 4 children by 2 different women. He got married for the first time at the age of 18, when his girlfriend became pregnant. Later, the couple had a second child, but 6 years later they divorced. Already at the age of 19, he was jailed for the first time on charges of violence against a young girl and 2 attempts to attack other girls. For this, he received 5 years in prison, of which he served only 22 months and was released on parole. In 1995, he married again. In the marriage, he had 2 more children, a son and a daughter. In 2000, he was again accused of violence, but the court failed to prove his guilt. However, 2 years later he went to prison for 11 years, having abused 5 girls. But back in 2012, police questioned him for hours until Bailey finally confessed. He killed Jill Meagher in a lane on Hopstrad. Within a few hours, he led investigators to the place where he hid the woman's body. It was located on the outskirts of Melbourne, not far from Blackhill Street. According to him, when he noticed Jill near that bridal store, he tried to kiss her, but the woman had him in the face. Then he dragged her into an alley, where he did all these abominations and killed her. Then he began to panic and cry, after which he got into his car, drove home, took a shovel, and returned to the crime scene. He loaded the body into the car and headed to Blackhill Street, where he buried Jill. While he was in custody, investigators discovered another disturbing fact. At the time of this crime, Bailey was still on parole, and his behavior should have been monitored by the relevant services. The public was outraged by the fact that the judicial system allowed such a monster to be released early. On September 30, a procession was held along Sydney Route in memory of Jill Meagher. The organizers expected to gather several hundred people, but the actual number of participants amazed everyone. That day, 30,000 concerned Melbournians took to this street. Jill's parents, who also came to the event, thanked everyone present for their support and expressed hope that their daughter's sad fate will force the authorities to pay more attention to the safety of women on the streets. Jill Meagher's funeral was held behind closed doors on October 4th. Given the enormous attention to this story, thousands of people could have come to the ceremony, and the family wanted to say goodbye to her in a calm atmosphere. The trial of the criminal began only on April 5, 2013. Initially, there were rumors that Bailey would deny his guilt and try to avoid a conviction. However, at the first hearing, he made a full confession. The final court hearing took place on June 19. The judge sentenced Bailey to life in prison, with no parole until 35 years later. By March 2015, 3 separate investigations had resulted in Bailey being found guilty of a number of other violent offenses against 3 women. He committed all these atrocities long before the attack on Jill Meagher. However, the victims came to the police only after the case received wide publicity. In May 2015, the court sentenced Bailey to an additional 18 years in prison, with eligibility for parole after 43 years. Even though his lawyers were able to fight one of the charges related to the earlier crimes, Bailey will not be able to apply for parole until he is 80 years old. After the trial, some details from his biography were revealed. The offender said that as a child he was abused by an adult woman, and his father regularly punished the boy physically. His lawyer also said Bailey has been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. It manifested itself in sudden changes in mood, as well as the inability to control one's anger. However, none of the above helped him reduce his prison sentence by more than 1 day. In November 2020, the unexpected happened. Bailey's birth mother gave an interview in which she stated that she had repeatedly warned the police about her son, but no one listened to her. She tried to convey that Bailey was extremely dangerous to society and should not be released from prison. All her words were simply ignored. After this story, Victorian authorities tightened laws related to the parole system. Thanks to these amendments, a convicted criminal could return to prison for the slightest infraction. In addition, it has become much more difficult to be released earlier than expected. This crime showed everyone in Australia how unfair the system can be. Even major politicians admitted that they had failed Jill Meagher. But this problem concerns the whole world, and in our modern society, it is still impossible to talk about justice and security